How do you convert your IRA into a Roth IRA, and should you? By the end of this video, you will gain clarity for your personal retirement plan and have action items to secure your retirement.
To learn more about securing your retirement and all the different elements you need to know, subscribe to our channel and hit the bell to be notified when we post a video every Monday. We have helped hundreds of our clients gain clarity and get on the path to a comfortable and happy retirement. Now it's your turn. Let's dive in.
We're going to tackle one of those questions that, again, we get all the time, and that's what we try to accomplish on this particular podcast, and that is, should I, how do I, all of those questions around converting from an IRA or a 401k to a Roth IRA. So we've got all the questions that we've gotten, and Merce and I are going to try to take you through that. So the first part that we want to handle here is kind of the differences. First of all, just so everybody's really clear, between a traditional IRA or a traditional 401k and the Roth. So Merce, can you kind of talk us through what the differences are, more so from the tax perspective?
Yeah. And we've done a previous episode on the differences between the two, but I'm just going to give you a quick high level so we can really dive into the whole idea of a Roth conversion. But a traditional IRA or traditional 401k, that is considered pre-tax money. So what that is money that you have not been taxed on. You're putting it into this account. You get an immediate benefit from a tax perspective. So let's say you take it right out of, if you're contributing to a 401k and you're doing what they call salary deferrals, well, that immediately comes off of your income for the year. So with the traditional IRA, traditional 401k, there's an immediate tax benefit. Whereas with the Roth, you don't really see the tax benefit. The Roth account is going to have after-tax dollars that you're putting into it. But the huge benefit here is that the account does grow tax-free. So let's say over the years, maybe you put in $50,000 into a Roth account and it grows because it's invested in the market, and it grows to $100,000, $200,000. Well, now all of that money is tax-free when you're taking withdrawals. So a lot of power there. Whereas the traditional IRA, all of that money, once you start withdrawing on it, is taxable. So it's going to be coming in the door as ordinary income, just like when you're getting a paycheck. So two key differences. One is pre-tax that you'll pay tax on later when you withdraw. And the other, the Roth, is you're using after-tax money to get a tax-free benefit down the road. And when you're doing withdrawals, there are no taxes due. So it's really nice in that sense there.
Yeah, and the one thing that I just want to make sure is clear is that Roth or traditional has nothing to do with the investment of the portfolio of the particular account. It is based on just the taxes. I had a call the other day, and the person was like, "So I want to know how do you, what's the difference in the investment between a traditional and a Roth?" And it has nothing to do with it. You can invest a Roth and a traditional the exact same way. It's just the tax perspective. So now the other question that comes about is this idea of how much can you convert? Now, to answer that question very broadly, you are able to convert 100%, no matter what the amount is of your traditional IRA, into a Roth. There are no conversion limits. So what does that mean? Well, that means that if you had $1 million in your IRA, you could convert all $1 million to a Roth IRA. There's no limit. There are limits on contribution. So don't get contribution and conversion mixed up in as far as that process is concerned. If I'm contributing, then depending upon my age, I have income limitations, I have all that. Oh, by the way, if I'm converting, I could be making $1 million a year and convert. Now, we're going to talk about reasons why you wouldn't do that, but just remember, there's no limits on conversion. My limits are only on contributions. All right, so now we want to talk a little bit about how do I get my money from the IRA or traditional 401k over into a Roth. So kind of the mechanics of how that occurs. So there's a couple of different ways to do that. So Merce, could you kind of take us through the mechanics of how to get it from one place to the other?
Yeah. So like Raiden said, there's a couple of different ways. The easiest is if both accounts are at the same institution. So let's say you're at Charles Schwab, Fidelity, wherever, and you have an IRA there, and you decided that you want to start doing Roth conversions. Well, what you would do is you would open up a Roth IRA. that is sitting at $0. And essentially all you're doing is making a transfer from the IRA, the traditional pre-tax IRA, over into the new Roth account that you've just set up. So it's all done very simply with a piece of paper and your signature on it. And all you have to really know is, well, how much do I want to convert? And then the custodian, like Fidelity or Schwab, is going to take care of the rest of that for you. Same process can be done if you're not at the same institution. So maybe you're at a 401k that's held at Fidelity and you want to get it over to your Roth account that's held at Charles Schwab. Just a couple extra steps. You got to kind of call the 401k company and really ask them what their procedure is in order to do a Roth conversion, but they'll walk you through all that as well. But essentially all a conversion is making a transfer from one account to another. And then there are obviously going to be taxes to deal with there.
All right. So now we're going to kind of move into a little bit about how do you pay taxes? And, we just had this case the other day where somebody called up and was talking to Merce and they said, I want to convert money out of my traditional IRA and put it into a Roth. Huge benefits there. Now, remember, when I take money out of a traditional IRA or 401k, it is going to be taxed. It's going to go on as not earned income, but taxable income. So again, if I take $20,000 out of my traditional IRA, I'm going to have $20,000 of income show up on my tax return. So what the person initially said they wanted to do was they said, I want to do a conversion. So withhold from my $20,000 that I'm going to convert, withhold federal and state tax. Now you might think that makes sense, but the reality behind that is if you do not have to, it does not make the most sense to take it and withhold it from that conversion. So think about what's happening. I'm actually paying taxes on money that could go over into a tax-free status. This particular person had a brokerage account with us with money sitting in it. So what we told them that they should do is take the money, that $20,000, take all 20,000 of it and put it into the Roth. Now they are going to owe some taxes, but pay that tax out of, if you've got it, either savings or other money like a brokerage account, because I now have all of that money into the Roth. Because remember, I can't contribute. I'm only converting. And so I want all of that money, all of the money, even the money that I would have had that I got to pay in tax. I want that to be growing tax-free. The benefit is so huge. You want to get all that money into the conversion, over into the Roth. Now, there are some things to think about, though, when it comes to taxes. You've got two things that you have to think about: conversion tax and future tax. So let's just handle the conversion tax. And Merce, could you kind of walk us through how we think through conversion and the amount of money and what we need to think through?
Yeah, because the bottom line is when you are doing a Roth conversion, there is going to be taxes to be paid. And like Radon just said, the best thing is if you're paying it outside of that account. So let's do an example of, let's say you decide you want to convert 30,000 from your traditional IRA and get it over into your Roth. Well, the first step is make sure you have enough money outside of those accounts to pay the taxes. So let's just imagine that the taxes on the 30,000 is say roughly about 6,000 or 7,000, maybe. That's probably a little high, but let's say it's $6,000 that you're going to owe. What you don't want to do is withhold it from that account, because you get it over into the Roth and all you're already at a disadvantage because that 30 has now become 24,000. So the first step is make sure you've got that 6,000 somewhere else that you can either make quarterly payments or figure it out as far as sending money up to the IRS. Now, there's a whole, in a way, a tax, let's call it a tax science, where you want to be thinking about, well, how much can I convert? And that ultimately comes down to your tax situation. So if you're in a very high tax bracket, all of those dollars that you're going to be converting are going to be added into that tax bracket in all essence. So we want to be careful to make it a strategic conversion. We want to make sure we're staying within a certain tax bracket and not going into another one in order to convert some extra dollars. So there's a little bit of science behind that. We can run iterations and through software that we have that lets us kind of play with the number and say, well, okay, because of this person's tax situation, they can really do up to $50,000 per year without having to go into another tax bracket and staying within the same one that they're currently in. So it's really playing around with those numbers, and that's a huge consideration when you're deciding A, if it makes sense at all to do a tax or to do a Roth conversion, and then B, how much do I do?
So the second part of taxes that's important to think about is future tax rates. So when you do a conversion, your hope, that's the wrong way to say it. You're not hoping for higher taxes, but you are betting that taxes will be higher in the future. And that's why you will do a Roth conversion. So think about it. If I pay a low tax rate today on my conversion and in future tax rates are higher, that was a really good transaction because I paid taxes at a discount. The money then grew into the future where taxes are going to be higher. So you kind of have to think, do I think my personal taxes in the future will be higher? So if today, let's just use an example. Let's say that today you're working, you're a well-paid executive or you have a well-paying job. And let's say right now you're at a high income. I'm just going to use some numbers. You're making $250,000 a year right now as a household. But you know that whenever I retire and I'm living in 15 years from now, 20 years from now, my income is probably going to be maybe 60,000 of taxable income. Well, where do you think your taxes are going to be higher? Today when you're earning 250,000 or in the future when you're earning 60? So the argument would be based on today's tax rates, you would be paying a lower tax rate. Now, the concern is that the government is going to raise taxes. And even though you might only be making 60,000 in the future, you're still going to be paying a higher percentage tax rate. So you would still convert. And the answer to that is you really don't know what's going to happen. So what we say is maybe do some smaller conversions, kind of split things up a little bit. Have some money that you didn't pay tax on, have some money that you actually have paid tax on. By the way, if you are going to be in a lower tax bracket in the future, doing a Roth IRA does not make sense because you're paying taxes high today when you could pay taxes low in the future. So just think that through. There's a little bit of strategy here. There's a little bit of thought process, but we can help someone think that through if we use software to do so. But for right now, just kind of think about it big picture. All right. Another consideration is required minimum distributions. So Merce, can you take us through the pros, cons there?
Yeah. So for anyone that doesn't know, required minimum distributions they're applied to any account that has pre-tax assets in it. So take a 401k, for example, a traditional IRA, a 403b. Those are all subject to what they call RMDs. And the whole deal behind it is the government says, hey, we made a deal with you and we let you put money into these accounts without paying taxes on them. So when you get to a certain age, and currently that age is 72, we are going to force you to start taking withdrawals based off of your life expectancy so that we can really start getting our tax revenue. So we made a deal. You got to defer the tax. Now you need to pay it at age 72. And so that is applicable to the pre-tax assets, so not to the Roth IRA. So the Roth IRA, already a big advantage is it's growing tax-free, but also another big advantage is you don't have to worry about the required minimum distributions when you turn 72. So that's very huge. So it could be someone has the goal of saying, well, I've amassed $1 million into my IRA and I don't want to deal with RMDs down the road. So let me just start paying the taxes now over the next 10 years versus being forced at age 72 when I hit that RMD age. Now, once you are in the RMD age, now it makes things a little bit difficult to do any conversions over into Roth assets because what the IRS says is, well, you're in RMD age, you have to take these required minimum distributions every single year. And we're not going to let you do that as a Roth conversion. We're not going to let you take the money, pay the tax on it, and then put it into a tax-free bucket. So let's say, for example, that $1 million pre-tax IRA, let's say the RMD for that is, let's just say it's $50,000 that person needs to take out that year. And so what they have to do, if they want to do a conversion, they have to take out the $50,000 and let's just say put it in their bank, pay the taxes on that $50,000. Then only after that can they do any type of Roth conversion. So say they wanted to do 20. So they can take 20 after they've taken the 50 out, put the 20 over into the Roth and pay the taxes on that. And now all of a sudden, it's not just a 20, it's 50 on top of that. So 70,000 that they've added to their income for the year. So once you hit that RMD age, it makes Roth conversions rather difficult, even if you are in a lower tax bracket, because you've got additional things coming in the door that are taxable that you're required to do. So ultimately, what I'm getting at here is that if you have a plan to do Roth conversions, if you have a plan to create tax-free assets for whatever reason, you want to start well before you reach that age of RMDs, which is 72.
All right. Our final point that we want to cover before we go today is this idea of how do you tackle a large IRA or any IRA? And we always just use easy round numbers. So let's just say that a person has $1 million in their IRA and they say, I want to convert it. Obviously, if you convert $1 million and you claim $1 million of income, that's going to take your tax bracket to really the top of the tax brackets for that year. You don't really want to do that. I could dream up reasons why you might, but that would be rare. So what we're trying to do is say, how do we tackle it? Well, what we do is we actually have specialized software that we use that would say, how much could you convert in a year and keep your taxes within the same bracket that you're in now, or maybe one notch higher? And there's lots of things to think about. Alternative minimum tax. If you make too much money, it could make your Medicare go up, your Medicare health insurance payment. So this software that we use really helps look at the entire picture. But typically, you know, we just were on the phone earlier today talking with a client that is 63. So they've got, you know, all the way to 72 that they could do a conversion plan. So we can actually show that person how much could you do over the next 8 years and be able to get converted. What's that ideal number? And that's what we're going to do. We're going to run them through their specific situation. So their numbers are going to be different than your numbers. Why? Because they have different types of income coming in than what you may have. The key is just realize that there's not just a one cookie cutter approach. You need to have a personalized plan. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, man, I'd like to see my numbers, reach out to us. Some of the easiest ways to do that is if you go to our website, it's pomwealth.net. You'll see on the top of the page there, it'll say 15-minute complimentary phone conversation. When you click on that button, our calendar comes right up, and the first thing is just let's have a conversation. Let's talk a little bit to know if it's even applicable. If it is, then we can set up and let you know exactly what we would need in order to run those illustrations that I'm talking about. But we hope this has given you a little bit of insight on the idea of converting an IRA or a 401k to a Roth IRA. We know it's a lot, but just make sure that you visit our website on the blog page, because there'll be an article on this particular topic that'll have all the numbers there for you. So again, we hope that this has been helpful. We'll talk to you again next week. We hope this video has given you some confidence and clarity as you plan for a worry-free life in retirement. But what else do you need? We have created a complimentary video course called 3 Keys to Secure Your Retirement. This video walks you through step by step what you need to do to get ready for retirement. You can also check out our podcast called Secure Your Retirement. You can subscribe below.
For more retirement tips, watch this video. Create your retirement income plan. Also, click here to subscribe to our podcast, Secure Your Retirement. If you like this video, hit the like button and be sure to subscribe and share it with your friends.